So I'm 22 years old, I just graduate college, and I forgot one thing. Oh, I have to go get a job. And so I get the first thing I can find, a sales manager for a hotel chain in my college town. And I was just so excited to have this job that I really didn't dig into, what are you going to be selling? And as I got in there and really started kind of getting used to the role, I realized I was going to be selling a kind of old, outdated, pretty rundown hotel. I was selling a service that I didn't really believe in, and it was just not a product that I was passionate about. So I was supposed to be going out there and bringing in hotel room night revenue for this hotel, and really found that I just couldn't ask for the sale. And I really struggled in that role. So today we're going to talk about how to ask for the sale so you don't have the same problem.
Welcome to Diary of a Worthy Pursuit,
where we talk about how to get what you truly want in life and in business.
You know, it's interesting how to ask for the sale. I think priority one is make sure that you believe in what you're saying.
Absolutely right. Lesson number one. And that's why I think it's so key that when you're starting a business or you're growing something on the side or even just looking for a job, like make sure you know what you're selling, who you're serving, and the results those people are getting. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't believe in it, like I'm not going to put my heart and soul in doing this every day. You'll just feel fake.
Totally fair. You know, it's interesting, as we were putting this together, I was thinking of my crew. So we answered phones for a bunch of companies, and we put together this little checklist for each employee to see how confident they are with each client that we answer phones for. Because I want to see where we need training. Mm-hmm. Calls on Call was one of those clients, or is one of those clients, right? So we are our own client. Mm-hmm. And I had probably half of my crew say that they weren't confident to answer the phones for us.
Oh, really?
And I was like, wait, what? All you're doing is answering questions about what you do every day.
Yeah.
So that was, I would call that an awakening about like, oh, we got to fix this. So I guess we got to do some teaching, training, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We've been concentrating so much on our existing clients that we didn't even think to concentrate on like, hey, if somebody calls asking what do we do and all that kind of stuff.
Well, typical cobbler's kids have no shoes, right?
Yeah, right?
Scenario.
How to ask the person for the sale.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. This is very timely.
Well, I think it's something that a lot of us struggle with as we start our own business because you don't go into business to be a salesperson. You go into business because you enjoy doing the thing that you enjoy doing. But I think that really we're talking about mindset, right? You have to believe that the product that you're selling is actually worth buying. Would you buy it yourself? And then it's a mind shift of like, so many people think, oh, sales is dirty. Like, I can't sell, that's gross. When it really just takes this mind shift of like, you're not selling, you're serving. When you really feel that the product that you have is going to really benefit your client, they're going to be better off using you than not using you, then it just feels like a transfer of confidence.
Right. I'll tell you two really quick stories.
Yeah.
When I was teaching the business planning class, I asked everyone in the room how many of them, after they start their business, right, on day one, you start your business, how many of you would consider yourself a salesperson? And nobody raises their hand. And I'm like, everyone's hand should be up because everyone's going to be in sales.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't want to call it that. I'm like, doesn't matter what you call it, right? It's still got to happen. And then I said, okay, how many of you know where your first client's going to come from? And they think, oh, my mom, right? Whatever, something like
Sure.
that. I'm like, okay, where's your 10th client going to come from? Are they just going to fall from the sky?
Oh, that'd be great if that's how business
works. Yeah, you're going to be waiting by the phone or waiting by your email,
right.
hoping that this client just shows up. When in the end, you have to build awareness and you have to sell. And so every one of you are in sales. And it was kind of weird because you could see them. They were not comfortable with that, even though they're selling or will be selling their own product or service, whatever it is. But there's just this negative connotation about sales.
Yeah.
And I asked them, just think of the last car that you bought, the last TV, phone, whatever. Imagine that there wasn't a salesperson. And then you think, well, online, right? You buy stuff online. Yeah. But I'm like, that website is totally a salesperson. Maybe not a person. It's doing sales, right? It's trying to reinforce with reviews. It's got a description that's trying to sell you, right? I just thought of this now. We were at a restaurant on our road trip, and it was Bob Evans, and they had a description of all the breakfast stuff, and one of them said freshly cracked eggs.
Aren't they all
I'm
freshly
like,
cracked?
what does that even mean?
Then that makes me wonder, like, where are the places that don't freshly crack?
Yeah, so then we looked at the other breakfast descriptions, and not all of them were freshly cracked.
Oh, interesting.
They had eggs. But I wanted to ask the waitress, right? Like, what are the freshly? Can I get the freshly cracked ones on this salad?
But you're right; it's a sales tactic. Absolutely.
Totally.
You know, I think what makes sales feel dirty is that we all feel like we've been sold, right? Like we bought something and then we had this like regret that, oh, maybe I shouldn't have bought that after the fact. Like I had one of those vacuum salesmen come to my house and it was pitched to me as like, have somebody come and clean your carpets. Cool, it was right before I had a baby. You can come clean the carpets in the nursery. That's awesome. And then he gets there and he tries to sell me a vacuum. And I am not saying it wasn't a quality vacuum. It was a cool vacuum. But that's not what I intended.
Right.
And then I sat there and I wondered how many other people are inviting you into their home for a service and then get sold, right? And that's what people don't like. But I enjoy buying things.
Oh, like, people love to buy.
You know, you're talking about online. I am a sucker for someone saying like, oh, you just checked this out and now there's something like this over here. Prime does this to me. I mean, Amazon is just the king of this, but also with their video. Like I watched the series Jack Ryan, loved it, and so now it's probably John Krasinski. But now I'm getting served all these other series like Jack Ryan. You might also like this, and this. And in the same way, they're kind of selling me because they're showing me what else to watch, so I don't let my subscription go, right?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. So it's interesting how people have negative connotation about sales, but it's got to happen.
And we love to buy.
And people are typically not that great at making decisions. So if they don't have a salesperson or a sales process guiding them, they have no idea. Which is what I found my staff doing, right? People would call, potential clients would call, and my staff would chat them up, but they never would ask for the sale, would never steer the potential client to this is how you buy. Even though we have this whole thing about for other other potential clients, how easy is it for their clients to buy from them? So when they call, right, the plumber, we call the plumber. I'll give a really quick example with the arborist I need.
Yeah.
So we got a tree that somebody planted 20 years ago, way too close to the house. It's a pear tree, and it grows these branches that hit the window, and so they tear up the screen and stuff like that. And then it grows really tall, and the leaves get into the gutters.
Yeah.
And nobody likes to clean gutters. So I'm like, hey, just cut the tree short and trim these branches, away you go. So I reach out to this arborist company that has trimmed it before, and I said, first I called and I said, hey, I left a message. Hey, do this again, right? It's been a couple of years. And I didn't receive a call back in a week, so I emailed them with it was a reply from a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do this again. It took another week, but I get an email, and it's the email for trimming, right? Here's trimming, a few $100, whatever. And then you need some fancy fertilizer thing for this tree. That's another few $100. Do you accept this quote? It's a little button. And it would have been so easy to just click yes. But I'm like, no, where's the button for the trim, but not this fertilizer stuff?
Yeah, right.
I don't need the fertilizer stuff, right? I don't care. I don't need it. And there was no button for that. So I replied to the email, hey, can you send me a quote without the upsell?
Yeah.
I haven't heard back. It's been a couple weeks.
Oh, my goodness.
So I had to call another arborist. But anyways, it was interesting how it would have been super easy. Just click that button.
Right.
And I imagine just about everybody's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, making it easy to buy. That's a great point. But I also, you said something in there that I think is gold, is that you are not selling to someone, you are guiding them to the solution that they need, right? So if someone would have just answered your phone call, first of all, the first ring,
Whoa.
right? What a concept. And then said, okay, cool, we can come out. We also fertilize these trees. Do you want that? Yes or no? Okay, well, here's why you might want to fertilize that tree. And then they actually guide you through that process. That's not selling, that's serving. So if you see yourself as a guide to serving your clients and not as someone who's trying to like sell your wares and like hit your revenue numbers, it'll feel so much less sleazy.
Yeah, you have a good point there. Because the fertilizer thing, they had the description of what it was chemically.
Yeah.
It was like so much nitrogen, so much potassium. And to me, that was like, you might as well just say wheat germ. It means nothing to me. I don't know why or if my tree needs this. So
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's the next piece that some of us miss, is that we sell the features, you know, like, oh, you're going to get this fertilizer and you're going to get 2 hours of tree trimming and here's what Like, here's what we're going to do. But we don't take it the next step and say, and here's what you're going to get. Here's the results you're going to have or the transformation you're going to get as a result of working with me, right? So as a coach, I can sell people like, hey, you're going to get 2 hours of coaching and I'm going to give you a planner.
All right.
And that doesn't sound exciting. Like, cool,
No.
why am I going to spend my money on that, right? But if I say, hey, we're going to sit down and talk about how to save you 10 hours a week so that you can either have dinner with your family or, you know, go after that project you've been putting off, that's a little bit more exciting.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting you say that about the coaching, because I remember doing business coaching with a guy, and I would sell, he wanted to buy just kind of break fix stuff, so they were 90-minute sessions. And I remember we had a conversation, and we were like 72 minutes in, and we'd resolved the problem, fixed it. So I'm like, well, it's great, we'll see you next time. And he's like, whoa, I get 90 minutes, don't I? And I was like, I guess you do. Like, what problem are we going to tackle in these 10 plus minutes here? But it was interesting how, from my point of view, we're going to solve the problem. From his point of view, we were going to talk for 90 minutes.
Interesting.
Like, I guess we could talk about the weather. Like, what?
Yeah, right. What else? Maybe you got a quick hit. Maybe he like needs
It
help
was
with hiring.
interesting how that's where he found the values. I'm like, all right, well, let's finish it up.
Yeah, that is interesting. But I think that too often we get stuck in our own bottle, and we need to talk in our clients' language.
Totally,
so like
absolutely.
in your particular situation where you're selling your call service, right? You can say like, hey, we're going to answer your phones. Or you could say, hey, you're missing out on 30% of your sales because nobody's answering the phone. So we help you capitalize on that extra revenue you're missing because you're not answering, right? That feels cooler than like, hey, hire us to answer your phones.
Right? Yeah, we're selling now sanity.
And that.
Like, veterinarians have a higher suicide rate than a lot of other. It's like veterinarians and dentists are one of the highest ones.
Oh my goodness.
And so we're like, hey, how about we remove some of that headache, dial your depression back a little bit, and make your business more fun.
I really enjoy my vet, so thank you for what you do.
Yeah, right? So let's try to sell that.
So another way to help you ask for the sale is just to, like we said, provide that value in advance. So what can you do before you're actually asking them to buy from you that they understand that you're the one who can help them. You're the one that they should want to serve you, right? So a lot of this today looks like doing content marketing, right? Like answering frequently asked questions on a website or maybe posting videos about this sort of stuff. But it's also answering their objections in advance, right? So knowing what are the top 3 questions that people ask, and then how can you help overcome that so they don't even have to ask those things, right? So in the coaching world, a lot of it is how much does it cost? Everybody wants to know how much it's going to cost.
Right. But it's a fair question.
Right. It is absolutely a fair question. But then also, is this going to work for me? Right? So it's great that you've helped, that you do this thing, but how does it work and is it going to work for me? So if you can transfer that value in advance and they don't have to ask those questions, because I find a lot of the time like, hey, I need to think about it, is really the worst thing that you can get out of a sales call, right?
That's a no.
A yes or a no is better because then at least you know and you can move on, right?
Yeah.
But let me think about it and get back to you is really saying like, hey, I don't see the value here yet. So how can you provide that value in advance so it's easier for them to say yes?
Yeah, we want a yes, a no, or future commitment. So a yes is yes, easy, right? Sign up, away you go, rock and roll. A no, great. We'll still follow up with you in 6 months because whatever you chose to do instead of us may have dropped the ball. So, but no for now, great.
Right.
I don't have to bug you for a while. Future commitment is it's a no for now, but I need to talk to these decision makers, or Christmas has to happen or something.
Right.
Or some obscure thing. At this date and time, we'll have this conversation. And what I'll have the crew do, or even this is the way I was trained, is you double check with them. Like, okay, I'm going to call you in 2 months on Tuesday, whatever, 9 a.m. What are you hoping to discuss in that meeting? So that I can be prepared and that they can be prepared. And everybody knows like we're on level playing field as far as I'm not going to come at you with any surprises.
Right.
But I don't want to be surprised either. I want to know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people are cool with that. They understand like, oh, because I don't want to waste their time. I certainly don't want them to waste my time.
Well, and what I love about that from a person who's buying perspective is I don't have to remember to follow up with you, right? So there are legitimate times in my business. I did this a couple months ago. Someone had an intro offer to help me with Facebook ads. Cool. Worked it for a month, looked at the results and said, okay, I want to come back when I have a new offer. I don't want to just do this yet. I want to, offer an event. So I said, follow up with me in 2 months because then I'll be planning for Q4 and these sorts of things. And so I asked them, I sales coached them to put it on their calendar to follow up with me at that time.
Oh, there you go.
But because then I didn't have to remember.
Right.
And that was, that follow-up hasn't happened yet, but would be extremely helpful. To their credit, that timeline hasn't elapsed yet.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
It's all good.
But the other thing that I hear you saying there is asking them for commitment before you ever ask for the commitment.
Right.
Right? So this idea of these micro yeses is this psychology, not trick, but this psychology piece of saying, hey, it's a lot easier to buy from you if I've already said yes. So you might say something like, hey, is it okay if I call you back next Tuesday? Yes. Cool. I just said yes to you once.
I would change that wording
Okay.
to, I'm going to call you at 9 a.m. Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right? And instead of them, so you're not giving them the option to say no to that. You're making them have to make a harder commitment to say no versus an easier one to say yes.
It's your term presupposition. You're making the assumption that you're going to talk to them anyway.
I'm going to call you at 9 a.m. and we're going to discuss these things that you already brought up as problems, and we can go a little deeper. And if you don't want to take my call, you don't have to.
Oh, I love that. You're giving them an out so you don't feel sleazy, but also their responsive great is a yes.
Yeah. I always think of it like if I was going to ask someone to marry me, what is the worst answer they could give me, right?
No.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, okay. What is the worst answer?
I think maybe.
Oh, fair.
So if they tell you no, you're like, all right, I can go marry someone else or whatever. Great. I know that.
Or we're done here.
Yeah. You want to get married? Maybe. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do
that
with
really
that.
throws a wrench in things.
Yeah.
Great point.
So I
Great
want
point.
that yes, no, or if they say like, I don't want to get married now, but in a year after I graduate college and I actually have a stable place to live, or
Future commitment.
yeah, after I'm off my parents' insurance, I don't know, whatever. Something like that, future commitment.
Yeah, right.
Right? So yes, no, or future commitment, no maybes, no, we don't want any gray area.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be accused of not, like, oh my gosh, you never called me back.
Right.
Like, well, you said maybe. I took maybe as a no. I'm like, maybe's a kind of yes.
Right.
Kind of yes. What?
Well, and your maybe and my maybe might be very different.
Right.
Yeah.
So I always think of it like it's a proposal. And
That's
I
a
don't
great
care if
way
they
to
say
think of
no. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
Happy if they say no.
Well, and what I also like about that, there's Digital Marketer is an online organization that uses this same analogy in marketing, right? So you're not going to go right from meeting someone to asking them to marry you,
Right.
And you don't do the same thing in your sales process. You're not going to like meet someone at a networking event and say, hey, do you want to buy a workshop from me? Like, that's weird. So instead, you treat the sales process like dating. You let them get to know
the
you a
little
little
steps.
bit. Right. So you first ask them out for a drink or to dinner or something, and then they get to know you a little bit. And then maybe you meet the parents, and then you do all these other things, like let's go on vacation together, make sure that we don't kill each other, those sorts of things.
Minor details.
Minor details, right?
That's a no.
So I think that though is a really good piece of evidence. And that's, again, that laying value in advance so they learn to trust you, because people buy from people they like, know, and trust. They're not going to buy from you immediately because that trust needs time to build.
Right. Totally agree. And I like the idea of having something for them to say yes to.
Yeah.
Instead of having that huge, like, buy my 6-month plan for $5 billion.
Right.
And they're like, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, and that's how marketing and sales go together. And I think that some people kind of confuse these things. As a new entrepreneur, maybe you think these things are the same. Or if you've been in marketing or sales, you think these things fight each other. But really, marketing's job is to bring people who are interested to you. And then as a salesperson, your job is to create them from someone who's interested into actually being a client, right?
It's the awareness thing.
Yes.
Right? They have to know that you exist before they can buy from you.
So marketing is really that trust building, laying the ground, the framework, laying, just creating that content and answering all those objections, right? So it's the foundation to have a really good sales conversation. And notice how, as we're talking about asking for the sale, we haven't even asked or talked about the question yet. All of this is really still the groundwork of what to do before the sale, because so much of that matters. And you almost have to earn that right because you're earning that trust.
So I suppose just like a proposal, you wouldn't say, so you want to get married or what? Or something like that, right?
Right.
Just to be a little,
So we've been together for a while, and so what do you think?
let's go ring shopping. Like, wait, what?
Right.
So, yeah, it's interesting that you have to have a way to ask people that they're comfortable with and they understand that there's a clear, definitive thing that you're asking for, right? Do you want to get married, or do you want to buy this widget? Sometimes I like to take their temperature. Say, so what are you feeling right now? Or if I were to ask you to buy this right now, what would you say? Or what would stop you from buying this right now? Or what's in the way of pulling the trigger? Or if you bought this today, a week from now, how would you feel?
Yeah.
Or something like that, where you're kind of tiptoeing around the ask, and then you can know from their response there what you can say to
Right.
make it a yes.
So what is your, now that we're actually talking about like the questions that would get a yes for a commitment, what is your opinion on this whole idea of like the assumptive close? You know, you go through sales training, a lot of these people are like, so, you know, if you sign today, we could get started next week, you know, or how do you actually go about getting the official yes?
My rule that I've learned as well, right, is that I have to talk 30% of the time and let the potential client talk 70% of the time, which is tough because typically we've seen enough where like, I know what your problem is, I know what you need, let's just sign this and move on with our lives. But I have to pump the brakes, pulling the reins as hard as I can to just be like, let them talk.
Yeah.
Let them talk. And it works because essentially what the person is doing is telling you about their problem. So I always use it like a knife in the back analogy. Person comes to you and they got a knife in the back and they're just looking at the knife in the back removal service, right? But you're like, tell me about the knife. Is it sharp? Is it big? Is it deep? And you're having them explain their problem in more detail. And then you're like, this knife? And you push on it a little bit. And they're like, yeah, that's the knife. And you're like, does this hurt? Right? And you twist it a little bit. And you get it to the point where they need this knife pulled out of their back as fast as possible.
Yeah.
You remove a lot of the objections that they believe they had initially. So including price,
Right.
right? The rule is nobody price shops an ambulance. You just dial 911 and whatever shows up, you got it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you're trying to get them to talk more about their problem. One, so that you can understand it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to sell to a problem that they don't have.
Yeah.
Like, you got to make sure that you can fix it. But also, they're really getting into that this is a problem that I need fixed. And so it's very easy to transition to we have the cure.
Well, and there's something about hearing yourself say this out loud in your own voice, in your own words, that kind of resells it for them, right? So let's say you've asked them about their problem and you've said, okay, based on what you've told me, this is what I think would be a good fit for you, and you kind of sell the transformation or the results, right? A question I heard recently that I thought was really interesting was someone said, okay, so tell me what you just heard. And what's interesting about that as a psychological piece is, have you ever heard like the best way to learn something is to teach it to somebody else?
Oh, yeah.
So the idea behind this is saying, okay, let me understand that you heard clearly what I just said. So there aren't any misconstrued ideas here or like unclear expectations that you're going to sign and you think we're going to like take over the world for you. But also...
Is that a thing?
Yeah, right. That would be awesome. New business idea. But also that idea of, well, now I'm teaching it to you of what you're going to give me. So now I'm internalizing it more. And that process of spitting it back out to you in my own words is helping me internalize it and also helping me believe and see it in myself.
All right. So it's you're asking them, what did you just hear from what you said, not what they said?
Right.
Okay.
And you could do it both ways, right? So I could ask, you're having them talk about their problem, and you might summarize that and say, so what I hear you saying is you're really struggling because you feel like you don't have time to answer your phones, but you're leaving a bunch of money on the table. Is that right? You know, and then they might add a little bit, cool. And you'd say, based on what I'm hearing you say, we help clients with this. This is the package that I think would serve you best. And you kind of explain that package, the results of transformation. Okay, so based on what you just heard, tell me if that's a good fit for your problem?
All right.
And so, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can spin this question, but you really just want to have them tell you what you just told them.
Gotcha. All right. So that everyone's on the same. They understand. You got it for sale. All that jazz.
Right.
What do you do if they tell you the problem, and you're like, we can't help you?
Oh, that's a great question. I have had people come to me with this before. I was actually just telling you before we started recording today that I had a friend from a networking event who ended up buying a free hour of consulting with me from a silent auction. Right? So she didn't technically buy it from me. I donated
I was going to say, buying it.
Yeah, right?
Doesn't matter.
She won it at a silent. I love thinking that you won it, even though you really paid for it. But she's semi-retired. She only works 10 hours a week with clients. She spends another about 10 hours doing volunteer work or networking or things like that. And so I was talking to her, kind of asking her about her problem. And as we dug deeper and deeper, I'm sitting here thinking, like, she doesn't need time management help because she's only working 10 hours a week. So she doesn't really need what I'm offering. So then I think the best way for me to build trust with her, and clearly she's already a friend, but is to say, I don't think that this is the best use of your time. So let's either, sit here and have a conversation not about work, or, let's just save you your time because this isn't a good fit for you. I do also think, though, if you ask what their problem is and it doesn't fit what you offer, sometimes the best way for you to build trust is to say, I typically work with clients who have these sorts of problems. It sounds like your problem might be something more like this. Do you mind if I give you someone who might be able to help you with that? Right. Or maybe they haven't described their problem clearly enough. So the other question that I really like, and maybe it's cheesy, but I like to end some of these discovery calls with, if I could wave a magic wand and change one thing about, for me in particular, it's how you manage your time or how you manage your business, what would that be?
All right.
And sometimes when you put it very generically like that, they explain their problem in a different way.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Because you're taking them to the point, the end game, the goal.
Right.
And they tell you a goal that's way over there.
Yeah.
So I like it. That's cool. It's
so
interesting that you also mentioned that because my crew, a lot of them have reached out to me and said, hey, this potential client needs X, Y, and Z. And I had to answer one recently. I'm like, we can't be everything to all people. Can't. It'd be awesome if we could. We can't.
Yeah.
In this particular instance, it was a veterinary clinic that was looking for 24/7 service with veterinary techs 24/7.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, yeah, that would be awesome. Can't do it. I don't know if anybody does that. If they do, great. But that's not something we can do. And it's not something that I want to do because I don't want to be called up at 2 a.m. with a problem from one of those employees.
Or somebody calling off at 2 a.m.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Right. I don't want any of that. So part of that goes to what I want with my business. What's the goal? What can I sell?
Right.
And so the agent, I could tell, was a little frustrated because she wanted me to just say, yeah, we'll make that happen. But I'm like,
Well, and that comes back to what are you going to accept in your business. I think when you start your business, you're a lot more likely to try to move heaven and earth to get the clients because you want the revenue and you want to help people and create a good name. But also, then the more of those you take, the more of a prison you create, right?
Correct.
So
totally correct.
I think once you get further along in your business, it's easier to say no and recognize those boundaries.
Yeah, you say, look, this is my sandbox, right? We're going to play in the sandbox. We're not going to go to the merry-go-round, not going to go to the swings.
Right.
We're playing in the sandbox.
Well, and I think then once you look at this sales conversation as how can I serve you in a way that is still serving me and my team, then it really becomes a win-win situation.
Right. That makes sales easy.
It makes it easy.
Easy. Dare I say.
Because it's serving. Right?
Yeah, right.
At the end of the day, we're all just serving.
Fair, making the world a better place. That's all we can do. This has been Diary of a Worthy Pursuit.
Where we help you get what you truly want in life and in business.
It's a good time. Share, spread the word, and the love.